we're live. Yes, I see it. Yes, I see a button that says live. So welcome to Sharing the Chair Live. This is our weekly chat that we're having here at Sunshine Cathedral. I'm Durrell Watkins, the senior minister. We have a very special guest today, the Reverend Sherri James. She's the senior minister of Upchurch, which was founded in 1987 by Della Reese. And it's part of the UFBL, the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which was founded in 1974 by an iconic minister, the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. So this just string of like founders and celebrities and doers and movers and shakers. Reverend James herself is a motivational speaker, an author. She's a graduate of film school. I've actually seen her in a documentary, As a Man Thinketh. And so she's, and then a pastor reviving, renewing a church. I know exactly what that's like. When you have to, you got a name, now you got to put some ground under the air castles, as it were. And she's done all of that. And she's going to tell us a little bit about what she does and how she does it and her motivation and all of that. So welcome, Reverend Sherri James. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here. And I think this is such an awesome thing that you're doing. And when I got your email, it was a pleasant surprise. And I'm grateful to be a part of this.
Well, thanks for, as people who've been watching, a lot of people will be watching for the first time because it's you, they want to hear you. But for those who've been watching for the last few weeks, every guest has tailor-made questions for their ministry and what they're doing. And then the fourth question, same question for everybody. And if we have 300 guests, I hope we get 300 answers because I'm fascinated by all the different approaches to things. So anyway, let's get right into what we want to know from you. As I said, you are the minister of a church that was founded by a celebrity, like a world-renowned singer, and then she became an actor, and then people knew her from a few things. I mean, Harlem Nights or Touched by an Angel, or knew her from different things. And then she was a minister. I mean, so she just keeps having these reincarnations of herself. And so everyone knows Della Reese.
Yes, yes.
Now, was she your teacher?
Yeah.
And then you were her assistant minister?
I was her assistant minister. So I joined the church in the late 90s, like 97. I didn't have a term for it, but I had been kicking around New Thought since high school. And just some things that my mom had introduced me to. I didn't know anything about Della Reese. I barely knew about her as an actress. And a friend of mine that we went to the same college, we both worked at Disney, and she invited me to church. And I said, oh, sure, I'll go check it out. And for some reason, my mom knew that Della Reese was ordained by Johnny Coleman. And because of that, I stayed at the church. There were things that made me uncomfortable, like there was this brazen prosperity. And I believed that I should have prosperity, but it was like at a level that made me uncomfortable. And so I really had to get past that. But again, my mom knew about Johnny Coleman, and knowing that, and like, it was like her stamp of approval in some way that it made it okay for me to stay there.
So you say, and so you wound up getting ordained, or you became a teacher, and there's levels, right?
Yeah.
And you got ordained.
Yeah, so in our organization, and I think it's probably similar to a lot of the other New Thought organizations, you take classes on the local level and satisfy a curriculum there. And then from there, you move to the, in our case, what's called the Teacher Training Academy, or now it's known as that, but at the time it was called the Johnny Coleman Institute. And it was a distance learning program. So we would spend 2 weeks in the summer in Chicago in an intensive, like sun up to sundown, in classes, beating out assignments. And then you would go home and we'd have assignments all the year round, and they'd be graded and sent back to you. And then we would go forward for an examination, or a written examination. If you pass, you go to the oral examination. And so I think it's probably similar to all of the other New Thought traditions, that it's the pathway into ministry is through the teaching core. And so I'd become a teacher really almost right after I got to the church. Like I fell in love with the teachings. I felt like this was a philosophy that was sound, that I could build my life around. It didn't require me to put my brain in the trunk. I could honor my science background. I could honor my my family, very academic family. I could honor that, and I could still worship God. To me, that was like the best of both worlds. I couldn't imagine anything better.
Yes. So the academic piece, because that sounds a rigorous program, took years,
It
right?
did. It
And
did.
then after you already had a master's degree and you're an Ivy Leaguer. So
Yeah.
I bet when it comes to curricula, I bet you're hard to impress, but there you are.
Yeah. Because so I was raised by professors. So my mom is a college professor, my dad is a college professor. And the thing that I learned from my parents, probably just being in that environment, is when you stumble across a true teacher. And it just has a ring to it. And when you hear the person, it's something in your soul stands up. And so this teaching, and probably the biggest one, is somebody that's in your neck of the woods, or was the Reverend Dr. Mary Ann Tumpkin. That I went to Chicago for our first conference. I was so excited to hear the Reverend Johnny Coleman speak. I couldn't wait. And when I got there, she was committed to something else, and Reverend Mary was doing the service, and I was livid. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how in the holy heck is this happening to me? And so I sat there grumbling, and Reverend Mary opened her mouth, and I have never been the same. That one cassette tape, that was 1998, that cassette tape I bought, and I ran over and over and over and over again, because it was that just mind altering. And then I just started showing up wherever she was teaching. I was on a plane to go hear her.
Yeah, she was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So here you're a student, you're young, you found this church, you come up through the church, you're on staff at the church, now it becomes your church. So you follow an iconic leader, a celebrity really, and now you have to take the church she founded and you have to lead it where it's going. In some ways it's the same direction maybe, but also some new directions. You have to honor the legacy, but also establish your authority and your vision and your plan. That's not an easy balancing act, and then to succeed too. Can you share a little bit about that?
So I really have to credit Reverend Della. She was so wise in the way that she did it. So it was March 2009, right? So she didn't pass the baton until February 2015. In March 2009, she approached me about being her assistant minister, and I said yes, not knowing what I'm saying yes to do. I'm still actively working as a producer in the entertainment field with projects and all kinds of stuff. And it took me 2 years to get to seminary. But she asked me into March 2009. She didn't announce until January 2010 that not that I was her successor, but that I was her assistant minister. and she just, and the way that she did it, because she has she's a disruptor. And so what she did was that she redid the bulletin and put my name in the bulletin under hers. And that's how people found out I was the assistant minister. And so there was pushback. There was someone who was already in the ministerial training program who was very upset, who tried to get that canceled. And I mean, it was something. And then, she never gave me any duties. Like my one duty was to sit next to her on Sunday. And I don't know if you can appreciate this. So before I was in film and TV, I was an engineering major. So I'm very much about like order and process, right? It's something I've been doing since I was little, how I ended up in the engineering sciences before I went into entertainment. So an unstructured environment is just uncomfortable for me. Like I hear the rules and fulfill these steps, right? Because I can do that. I got that. All this uncertainty of like, so what did you ask me to do? Like, what? I just sit next to you on Sunday? how am I supposed to be learning? You're not even telling me anything. It was just unbelievable. So that went on for a number of years. I entered the seminary program in November 2011 and started moving through the process. And she never announced a date where she would sit down. She never talked about it. But what was happening in that time period is that people were getting comfortable with me. Mm. It was just like, it's kind of how you introduce food to children. You just put it in front of them. And like one day they choose, you just keep putting spinach on the plate. And one day they're like, what the heck is this on the, let me just, it's on the plate every night. Yeah. Let me try it. And so that was how she rolled it out. And then, like I said, she didn't announce a date to sit down, but February 15th, 2015, she threw a party at her house. And I was late. My now assistant minister, Sherri Thompson, and I were locking up the church building, and because everybody had been bussed up to her house in this fancy schmancy neighborhood. And so we were, just closing up the church. Like we had responsibilities. And so we headed up to her house. And when we got there, everybody was like, congratulations. I'm like, what? And so she had a whole thing. I didn't know any of this was going down. I didn't know any. I mean, she's going to retire because she's like 80 something, but like, you don't have a when or where or how. And so that was her person. Like I said, she was a disruptor.
Yeah.
And so what she did that made it easy for me to slide into these shoes is to basically lay the groundwork so that people had time to just try what was on the plate.
Yeah.
And so we didn't, I think in any shift you have fall off. We really didn't experience the kind of fall off that you normally see when someone leaves and another person comes in. And then on my part, I think I was just naive enough to believe that I could do it.
Yeah.
I honestly, for the first few years, just didn't think about her legacy or the size of it or what it meant to follow someone of that size. It just didn't cross my mind. Yeah. And my focus was on just do the work, just show up, make sure the doors are open every Sunday, and then grow, have evidence of growth.
There is, there are the type of people that are just so creative. And they just dream dreams and they just seem to happen. And the people show up to help them make it happen. And they just have this larger than life personality and a beautiful smile and a great, quick with a story and things happen around them. And that's wonderful. In fact, I think New Thought was built on that. But New Thought didn't grow from that because you've got Emmett Fox filling a room. And then what? I think that Della Reese, the Reverend Della Reese, was so brilliant to not just leave it up to chance or not to pick someone who's exactly like her, who couldn't be her as well as she was her, that she picked someone who had an even better academic background than she had, that was more systems oriented than she was, that was more process oriented, more detailed than she was. She probably, in addition to founding the church and inspiring the church and her wonderful sermons and whatever, another one of the top greatest things she probably did was choosing you. My predecessor was a lot like her, and I think I'm probably a little bit like you. And before he died, we were talking about how what we've got going on was a two-person job, but it wasn't a two-person at the same time job. It was, he did what he was good at, and then he handed off, and then I did what I was good at, and now it's this wonderful thing. And I think that's probably what happened for Upchurch, that she was brilliant, whether consciously or subconsciously, who knows? But whether it was her brain or her spirit, she knew who to pick to keep it going and thriving.
It's funny you should say that, because I have had to sit in that, because my style is so different. It is, she had this mother wit about her, and she's an icon. She's an icon. Like, I don't even know how you become an icon, but she was an icon, and she understood that she was an icon. She understood the weight and the gravity of like what she had. And it wasn't something that she took for granted. She was absolutely grateful for it, but she absolutely understood her power and walked in that power. In I don't remember the year, but this was right around the time when I was first coming to the church. CBS was not paying her the same as they were paying the other celebrities on Touched by an Angel.
Wow.
And this Black grandmother took a stand against CBS and demanded 100,000 per episode, which is what her coworkers, Roma Downey and John, I forgot his last name, that the other angel, were receiving. And the thing is that they very easily could have put, I mean, when you think about the expendable nature of people of color in certain roles, they very easily could have just written her out. And it's even more, it has, for me, carries even more weight, that it was Les Moonves that she was going up against. And with all of the Me Too movement and all the stuff that has come out about how he wheeled and dealed and decisions that he made and careers that he stopped, that the weight of this Black grandmother saying, no, I'm worth what my coworkers are getting. And so she really understood that. And I think for me is that I just don't have any delusions that that needs to be me, or that that is me. I feel like there is something that I have that is me in my own way. And the people that are supposed to hear the way I deliver are going to show up.
Yeah.
And I believe in results. I
Right.
believe in results. That a friend of mine used to say this at a company that I worked with when I was in seminary. I was a tele fundraising firm, and he said, "Sherri, success quiets the storm." And he was saying that because there was so much
That'll preach.
turnover in that call center that one week you have a job, the next week you don't, because your performance is not trending up. And he would always tell us success quiets the storm. And
Mhm.
so don't get involved in the noise that folks are talking back and forth about you. Just have the success. And so I don't know what people said about me when I first started. I never paid attention, and I still don't pay attention.
Good. I gave a talk last year in Tennessee. That's where I met you. And the name
Yes.
of my talk was "I can show you better than I can tell you."
Yes. 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 And that's it. I believe that wholeheartedly. And honestly, that was what those New Thought pioneers were about. They were about results.
Mhm.
They met in different little conclaves, and it was like, well, I did this and I used this affirmation, and this is the result that I got. And I feel like we've lost that attention to results, and we've gotten comfortable in just having a nice sounding theology. But honestly, either this works or it's not worth it. You have to go up against too many obstacles, of not being accepted, being called a cult, um, you know, uh, well, for me, women can't preach, all of that nonsense,
Mhm.
that this has to work,
Yeah.
or what are we doing?
Yeah. I love Emma Curtis Hopkins' statement. There is good for me, and I ought to have
And I
it.
ought to have,
Yeah.
yes,
I
yes,
love
yes, yes,
that.
yes,
You mentioned the Touched by an Angel series. You mentioned being a producer. I mentioned earlier that you were in As a Man Thinketh. Uh, how do you get from film career and film education to this? Was it an easy transition? Is it sort of more of the same, or was it a radical? Here's a new thing.
right. So what had happened was was that I was working at the Walt Disney Company. That was my first job out of graduate school. And my coworker we weren't in the same department, but you know how when you're first out of college, it's like meet the other alum from your college. So my coworker was working in another area of Disney, and she reached out, or how would I say, co-alum, whatever. But anyway, we had lunch together. We hit it off. We were friends, and so she had been attending the church, and she invited me to attend. And so I said, sure, I'll come. I wasn't looking for a church. I was very fortunate. I was raised in a house that, even though we didn't know the word New Thought, I had a mom who thought like that. And okay. And so I appreciate that my child just shouted something. So and I'm gonna trying to stop a storm, a bear. Okay. And so anyway, she invited me to the church, but because I was already willing to not just go down any road, I was very thoughtful about where I was getting my message, and I knew I wanted something that was progressive and that didn't require me to think of myself as a second class citizen or as a second to somebody or any of that. And so Upchurch fit, and so I stuck with it. And you know my parents are teachers, and my mom always said to me, don't become a teacher because teachers don't make any money. And so I ran from teaching, but the thing is that that's actually where my gift is. And so for years, the need to teach would show up in workshops for the film industry, or show up in seminars or whatever. And so when they offered this idea of a the Johnny Coleman Institute, I jumped on it because I just love to teach. It's the thing I would do for free because I love it so much. And there's a high that I get that's like nothing else from just sharing a concept. And I say this, and I don't mean this in any arrogance, but it's just the way that my mind works, is that I literally could teach the phone book and I would blow your mind on what would make you fall in love with the phone book.
Wow.
But it's something that I just learned from my mom primarily, but my dad as well, in terms of like how you crack open information for people. And so I entered that program. And then we had two assistant ministers, and for different reasons, they moved on to their own ministries. And so we were left with this void, with the church, where we didn't have an assistant minister, and it was just Reverend Della. And around that time, she started offering classes in her home. And I was part of the teaching corps, and none of the other teachers were going for different reasons. Either they just weren't willing to make the trek, or they couldn't make the trek, or whatever. And so I felt like it just didn't make sense, because what I was seeing was that we had kind of a Wednesday church at our house and then a Sunday church on Sunday. And they weren't necessarily touching one another. And I just felt like that just made no sense to me. And so I felt like, well, you know what? I'll be that bridge. I'll bridge the gap between the Wednesday church and the Sunday church. And so I just started showing up at our house and studying. And, I'm already a student. I love studying. And so I just started going through that process. And she asked me to be her assistant minister. It definitely would not have been something that I would have approached her about. I wasn't looking to go to seminary. I was busy trying to do real estate deals and film deals. And, I've always thought of myself as a mogul. And so that was where my head was. And really what happened was that in 2008, everything fell apart. The film industry went on strike, but then also, there was a domino effect with Lehman Brothers and the real estate industry. And so for me, every project that I was working on in real estate and in the film industry fell apart. And all of a sudden I had no income, and I had just bought this multi-million-dollar house. And it was like, like what? The what? And so I really had to start over and reinvent myself. And her invitation came in that time period. Yeah. And I said yes. And I think I went kicking and screaming because, my colleagues are the people that are winning Oscars right now. Exhale. That my colleagues are and there's been this whole renaissance with Black, film and TV and all of that, with the shows on OWN and all of that. And so these were my peers. These were my people that I was running with, that we were in the trenches struggling, and making that detour. I always said I will be the last one standing. I won't quit. And so I quit. And so really having to like work through that discomfort, that sense of like, did I let myself down? Is my word my bond? Is all of that. So no, it was not an easy process. It's been a process of accepting that I'm in my right place, because I'm experiencing a level of success that I never saw in entertainment. And I know that the lessons that I learned there are supporting me here. But, you look at where you get momentum, and your momentum tells you where you need to be.
Yes, yes. And, life is long.
And life is long.
You're,
Yes.
you're going to do a lot of things still. And so you really haven't produced your last thing.
Oh, I know I haven't. I
Just the
know I
next
haven't.
thing you
I
produce.
got some stuff in the back that I'm not ready to
Yeah.
talk about yet. Yeah, no.
But, yeah, but the production and the ministry, it's all going to come together in ways that are still going to wow us. I don't know that it's going to get an Oscar, but it's going to get attention. I know that.
And
So
I want that Oscar. I want that.
I want it. Okay, well
The
then,
Oscar sitting right there.
right. There's an Oscar for you, and you ought to have it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Doggone it. Yes.
Well, since you are a teacher, I want to give you an opportunity to teach us something right now.
Yes.
We're in a weird time. A lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty. What is it about your Fillmorian theology, or maybe New Thought theology in general, or maybe not even that big? Maybe just what is it about your message? What can you share with us right now? People are, some people are furloughed, some people are quarantined, some people aren't quarantined and they're facing medical things every day. It's just a weird time, and a lot of people have a lot of peace about it. A lot of people have a lot of anxiety about it. Nobody knows what tomorrow is going to hold. And so step into your pulpit for a second and give us
Sure.
something. And give us something.
Yes, I will. So there are a couple of things. One is that I am deeply grateful for this moment. And the reason I'm deeply grateful for this moment is because of the lessons that I learned in 2008. And the difference between me today and me back when everything fell apart in 2008 is all of the spiritual work that I did. And I didn't know I was preparing for this season and to be able to take advantage of this. I just knew that I wanted to be better. And so the things that I developed between 2008 and 2020 were really my daily spiritual practices. So the meditation, the tapping, journaling, I have a whole little checklist. I do this thing that I call my psychological meal, where when I have my protein breakfast, I also sit down and have a psychological meal where I go back over a past win, where I succeeded, and just kind of live in that moment and really bring up all of that energy and see what I can pull from that to use for the current day. My mirror work, that's something I learned from Claude Bristol's The Magic of Believing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I love that little book.
Yes. So those are things that I read every day. So those are things that I learned to do that became just daily, what I call my daily non-negotiables. It's not up for, I brush my teeth, I do these things. It's not up for discussion as to whether or not they're going to get done. There might be a win, because like this morning was one of those mornings where I had an early morning meeting. So some of it gets done later in the day, but in general, it happens every day. And what I can say is that this is really the time to reinvent yourself. The thing about change is not to fight change, but to actually relax into change. And sometimes we're so afraid of letting go, and it feels like a death, and it is a death. It's a death to what was. But there's always something better, and there's always something good. And the thing is that we don't notice everything. We notice according to our conditioning. And so the thing that I work on more than anything else is gratitude. So gratitude is also one of my daily things. And because the universe has its own love language. You guys are familiar with Gary Chapman, love languages. The universe has its own love language, and that love language is gratitude. And that there is this level of gratitude that will literally shift your vision. And what happens is that none of us ever get to the level of gratitude where our vision gets shifted. We think of gratitude as like I'm grateful for this little piece over here, and then some time in between, and I'm grateful for this little piece over here. But really, we're meant to use gratitude like a snowball. Um, there's an author, Frederick Bales, that talks about gratitude as mining gold. And I don't know if you know this, but when people are mining gold, they find flecks, specks, and flakes. And very rarely do they find a nugget, like a large piece of gold. What they do is that they have the pan, right? And they find the little specks and flakes, and then they take those and they melt those down, and that's actually how you get the nuggets. And so in order to get a lot of gold, you've got to find a lot of little specks and flakes everywhere. And he was saying that this is the way that we need to approach gratitude, where it's like you build on, you stack it. You stack gratitude and you build it like you would a snowball. And if you would do that, if you would, I gave my people today a schedule, 8 a.m., 1 p.m., and 8 p.m. If you would just at those time intervals, sit in gratitude for 5 minutes, just bring up something that you're deeply grateful for and let the feeling just overtake you for just 5 minutes, and then go back about your day. In 30 days, you won't recognize your life. Gratitude it radically shifts your environment, and enough gratitude will literally burst the bars of circumstance. And so all of us are imprisoned by the degree of gratitude that we're willing to express in our lives. And so if there's any lesson in this moment, it's gratitude. And it might be something little like, I'm grateful that I'm in my house and I don't have the illness, or I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head, or I'm thankful for a good night's sleep. But what happens is the snowball. And sometimes we want to be grateful for the big things, but that's like going and mining for gold and looking for the big nuggets. They don't exist. What you want those little specks and those little flakes, and you melt them down and get you a gratitude ball rolling.
That's wonderful. I needed that. Thank you so much. I've got one more question. Everybody knows what the question is, but first, you've got a book about prosperity. What is your book? People want to know about your book.
I was trying to see if it's on my shelf. My book is called The Money Poems.
The Money Poems.
The Money Poems, yes. This book is about your mindset. So there is an outer game to money, which most people are familiar with, which is save your money. Let your expenses be less than your income. Invest for your future, retire. But that's the outer game of money. There's an inner game to money that is about mindset. It's about positioning. And if you don't get that right, then none of the other outer stuff is going to get you anywhere. So you'll still be that person with 5 million in the bank and you're $500 short, because it's a mindset. And so that what the money poems help you to do is that they help you to recondition your mind for wealth. And I think of it this way, that a lot of people think that, when I get money, I'll get my mindset together. Right? I've got to get money to get my mindset together. But that's like saying, when I lose weight, I'm gonna go ahead and work out and eat right. Right. That's not how it works. Right. It's like you get right in the doing. And so what the money poems allow you to do is to get right in the doing. And so this is a companion to managing the outer game of money.
Okay. The Money Poems, and that's available on Amazon?
Amazon. Amazon.
All right. I would be surprised if that winds up being in part of the Samaritan Institute curriculum. The Money Poems, yes. All right, by Reverend Sherri James. Also, are you broadcasting, or are you streaming your services on Sunday, or a talk or lessons?
We are every Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific. It is, and we're in there. We're in the chat. I'm there chatting with you live, and it's youtube.com/upchurchla, youtube.com/upchurchla.
All right.
And afterwards on Instagram at Sherri D. James, we have a sermon after party.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so we go live on IG, on Instagram.
Yes.
The kids call it IG. I don't want to sound like Like I actually know. I just learned how to use Instagram yesterday. All right. So, but I'm there. I'm
Yep.
there.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
so we do a sermon after party. And so it's usually either me and my assistant minister kind of chatting back and forth, talking about, depending on who preached that Sunday, like, the insights that we heard, or why did they make this choice or that choice. So it's very informative for anybody that's a parishioner, but it's also great for ministers or teachers or practitioners, because we really dig into, why'd you go with that example? Where'd you get that from? And so you get to kind of get into the mind mechanics of like how and why, we do things the way that we did. And so so that's what we do on
Upchurch
Sunday.
LA on YouTube, Upchurch LA.
Yeah.
And then there's the after party on Instagram.
On Instagram at Sherri D. James. Yes.
Sherri D. James. And there is the money poems available on Amazon.
Amazon.com. Yes.
So if you had a good time.
And one more thing.
What's that?
The Wealth Habits podcast. You can find it anywhere podcasts are offered.
Wealth Habits. That's yours.
That's mine. Yes.
Wealth Habits. Okay. Wealth Habits.
Co-host and co-creator on that. The Wealth Habits podcast. Where that comes from. So I have a good friend who is a personal finance coach. And what we were seeing in both of our worlds was that people were struggling to change and struggling to get their habits in order. And so on my end, I would see people who thought that money would fix their problems. And on his end, he would see people who had the money and still had all the problems. And so we started saying, well, how could we come together and bring the best of these worlds together? So we're bringing together 50 years of experience between the two of us and really sharing those wealth habits, that winning in life is not just about having enough money. You need enough money, absolutely. But it's also about having the habits in 6 other key areas of your life. And so that podcast drops every Wednesday. And we have a new course coming called Challenge to Change.
All right. If you've loved this half hour as much as I have with Reverend Sherri and you want more, YouTube, Instagram, podcast, and Amazon. You can just soak it up. Thank you so much for this great time. I want to ask you one last question. Yes. This is always the final question. What happens when we die?
I haven't died yet. I have no idea.
Right. That is the best answer. The most honest, most wonderful answer. I love that answer. I do, and I don't know. I have no idea. I said once in a sermon, I said, I don't know what's happening in the parking lot right now. I certainly don't know what's happening in another world, but
right, exactly.
But I do believe in omnipresence.
Realistically, I think that the universe is faithful, so I think there's some conclusions that we can draw. But
I believe in the omnipresence of God. So whatever it is, I trust is good.
Exactly.
I can't go much past that.
There you go. That's it.
This has been delightful. Thank you so much for saying yes to my invitation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here. I hope I wasn't like too long-winded and all that. Like, just thank you.
No, you were perfect. I hope you'll do it again. And once the world gets back to normal, maybe you'll even come preach at the Sunshine Cathedral.
It would be my honor. I would love to come and hang out with you guys.
Thank you so much.
All right.
That's it for Sharing the Chair. We'll do it again next week with the Reverend Elder Dr. Mona West. She's a Bible scholar and spiritual director. And then every day, Monday through Saturday, we have midday prayer, 5 minutes, noon Eastern. Monday nights is Christians and Cocktails, panel discussion, every topic under the sun. And then Sundays, we live stream our worship at 10:30 Eastern. So join us for any or all of it. God bless you. See you soon.